Leaked intelligence documents now reveal what few dared to imagine. The Trump administration authorized the CIA to carry out lethal operations inside Venezuela. These directives explicitly permitted targeted killings of Venezuelan government officials, including President Nicolas Maduro.
Thank you. Curious, why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela? And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged?
Well, I can't do that, but I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the, they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And as soon as I heard that, I said, a lot of these countries, they're not the only country, but they're the worst abuser. And they've entered they've allowed thousands and thousands of prisoners, mental institution, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, emptied out into the United States. We're bringing them back, but that's a really bad, and they did it at a level that probably not, many countries have done it, but not like Venezuela. They were down and dirty. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer? But I think Venezuela is feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too. We're not going to let this country, our country, be ruined because other people want to drop, as you say, their worst. They have given us their worst. They've loaded up our country with prisoners, with mentally ill people that are seriously ill, criminally ill, and we're not going to take it. And so, I mean, it's just one of those things. And I can tell you, we've taken care of the sea. There's nobody, and we're watching. And if we see it, we'll save it. Yeah.
International legal experts warn this represents a direct violation of international law, potentially constituting extrajudicial executions. This decision did not emerge in a vacuum. Historical patterns reveal a long-standing U.S. habit of covert interventions across Latin America, from the CIA-backed coup in Guatemala 1954 to the overthrow of Chilean President Salvador Allende in 1973. Today's operation mirrors these precedents, suggesting a deliberate strategy of regime change disguised as national security operations. The leaked documents cite Venezuela's alleged involvement in drug trafficking and criminal activity as justification.
Many countries have done it, but not like Venezuela. They were down and dirty. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
But UN reports and independent sources dispute these claims. Venezuela accounts for only a fraction of global cocaine supply, with Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia dominating production. Analysts argue these accusations are pretexts, eerily similar to the false weapons of mass destruction claims that justified the Iraq invasion in 2003. Legal scholars emphasize that granting intelligence agencies authority to kill without due process is not only morally dubious, it is illegal under multiple international statutes. These operations risk eroding global norms and set a dangerous precedent for other nations. Within days, U.S. military activity escalated. B-52 bombers conducted repeated flyovers along Venezuela's coast.
Global Strike Command spokesperson has confirmed the U.S. flew three B-52 bomber jets near the coast of Venezuela yesterday. This comes as President Trump says he is authorizing the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. Also, as the U.S. has destroyed 5 boats in the Caribbean Sea. 27 people have been killed in the strikes.
Pentagon sources describe them as shows of force, but foreign analysts saw them as direct intimidation, signaling potential intervention.
Intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis. Olivia, what more do we know about U.S. operations in Venezuela?
Sure, well, we know most about what has been in plain sight, which have been these extraordinary projections of U.S. military power near Venezuela. B-52s are nuclear-capable bombers, so they are serious military hardware. In terms of CIA operations that the president spoke to, the fact that he spoke to them at all is rather extraordinary because the entire point of covert operations is that they remain closely held secrets, such that the U.S. has plausible deniability about being involved in any given operation. So the fact that the president is discussing it publicly now calls into question whether there was in fact an operation underway or about to begin, and whether it can continue or begin because of those public comments. It's also important to note that covert action can span a number of things, right? It isn't only lethal activity. It can be sowing political influence campaigns. It can be acts of sabotage on infrastructure. It can be arming opposition groups. It can be offering real-time intelligence to another government to take some sort of lethal action. So we don't know specifically what authorities have been offered here, and we don't know in furtherance of what policy objective they may be. The CIA has declined to comment on any matter in this case.
Reports indicate at least 6 lethal strikes targeted vessels in international waters, killing dozens, including Venezuelans and citizens from Colombia and Trinidad and Tobago. Families describe their loved ones as fishermen or ordinary civilians with no charges, no trials, and no warnings. UN legal experts condemned these as extrajudicial killings, potential war crimes, and violations of national sovereignty. These strikes do more than threaten Venezuela. They destabilize the entire Caribbean. International observers warn that such actions could trigger refugee crises, regional conflicts, and economic collapse in small island nations. The broader goal, according to leaked intelligence, is regime change. Operations are designed to pressure President Maduro to resign, or, if necessary, remove him forcibly. Military planning documents suggest possible deployment of up to 10,000 U.S. troops, supported by warships and submarines stationed strategically in the Caribbean. Senator Marco Rubio, a longtime advocate for intervention in Latin America, reportedly influenced these strategies. His previous lobbying for Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela interventions aligns closely with current operations, reflecting a calculated, interventionist U.S. foreign policy pattern. Analysts suggest this combination of covert CIA operations and overt military threats is designed to create maximum pressure on the Maduro government while minimizing immediate U.S. casualties, a tactic used repeatedly during Cold War-era interventions. The legal framework for these operations is highly contested. UN representatives and human rights advocates argue that authorizing lethal action without judicial oversight violates numerous international treaties, including the Geneva Conventions. Past rulings by the International Court of Justice, notably against U.S. CIA activity in Nicaragua during the 1980s, reaffirm that such operations are unlawful. Yet, the U.S. government defends its actions under the guise of counter-narcotics enforcement. Experts call this misleading. Global monitoring agencies report that less than 5% of cocaine entering the United States passes through Venezuela. Observers warn that strategic resources, Venezuela's oil, gold, and rare earth reserves, may be the real motivation behind these interventions. Ethically, the operations raise severe concerns. Granting intelligence agencies carte blanche to kill, destabilize governments, and manipulate local proxies undermines international trust and sets a precedent other powers could exploit. The human toll is immediate. Civilians, fishermen, and ordinary citizens in Venezuela, Colombia, and Trinidad and Tobago are caught in the crossfire. Regional leaders, including Colombian President Gustavo Petro, have publicly condemned the strikes, noting their indiscriminate nature and violation of sovereignty. The U.S. is also backing local proxies. Maria Conina Machado, funded by U.S. sources, openly supports intervention and privatization of state resources.
Forget about Saudi Arabia. Forget about the Saudis. We have more oil. Infinite potential. And we're going to open markets. We're going to kick off the government from the oil sector. We are going to privatize all our industry. Venezuela has huge resources: oil, gas, minerals, land, technology. And as you said before, we have a strategic location, hours from the United States. So we're going to do this right. We know what we have to do. And American companies are in, super strategic position to invest. This country, Venezuela, is going to be the brightest opportunity for investment of American companies, of good people that are going to make a lot of.
Analysts argue this is a textbook tactic, cultivating local collaborators to legitimize foreign aggression while maintaining deniability. Investigators and geopolitical analysts are sounding the alarm. The escalation in Venezuela is not just a regional crisis, it could set a perilous global precedent. Covert CIA operations combined with overt military threats and a cascade of misinformation undermine the norms that have governed international law for decades. Every extrajudicial strike, every proxy-backed operation chips away at sovereignty, accountability, and the concept of legal restraint in foreign policy. If left unchecked, these interventions risk destabilizing not only Latin America but the wider international system. Experts warn that the same combination of intelligence manipulation, lethal military action, and politically cultivated proxies has repeatedly plunged other nations into chaos. Iraq, Libya, and Syria are stark examples. Interventions justified by alleged threats or fabricated narratives led to prolonged conflict, collapsed governments, humanitarian disasters, and a vacuum exploited by extremist factions. In each case, ordinary civilians paid the highest price. Venezuela faces a similar trajectory if the current strategy continues. Already, foreign-controlled resources, from oil fields to strategic minerals, have become a focal point, while the capacity for effective governance diminishes. Families are caught in the crossfire, economic collapse accelerates, and social institutions falter. Analysts caution that what begins as a narrowly targeted operation could rapidly spiral into a broader conflict, drawing in neighboring countries and destabilizing the entire Caribbean basin. The playbook is familiar. Destabilize a sovereign government through a mix of fear, economic pressure, and local proxies, all while maintaining plausible deniability. Meanwhile, fabricated narratives, claims of criminality, corruption, or drug trafficking are used to justify lethal actions that have little to do with stated objectives. Legal scholars insist this undermines centuries of international law, from the Geneva Conventions to treaties prohibiting extrajudicial killings and the targeting of civilians. Regional leaders have already expressed grave concern. Colombia, Trinidad and Tobago, and other Caribbean nations have denounced these strikes as violations of sovereignty and international norms.
Fishermen and seamen are being urged to slow down and stay close to shore amid fears of being bombed by the United States military, which continues its anti-narcotics operations in the Caribbean Sea. The warning follows the deaths of 2 local fishermen, Richie Samaru and Chad Joseph, who were among 6 people reportedly killed when the U.S. bombed a small vessel it claimed was carrying narcotics in international waters earlier this week. Fishermen and Friends of the Sea Corporate Secretary Gary Aboud condemned Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessa and her government for previously supporting U.S. missile strikes on suspected drug boats. Aboud says it is frightening that TNT's leader would endorse such actions, calling her comments outrageous and unbecoming of a senior counsel.
UN representatives have called for urgent accountability, warning that failure to act now could normalize the very tactics that have fueled prolonged wars elsewhere. Leaked documents, military activity, and proxy operations paint a chilling picture. A calculated strategy where covert intelligence, overt military intimidation, and politically positioned collaborators work in tandem, all justified by fabricated claims. Legal experts are unanimous. These actions breach international law, undermine the principle of sovereignty, and erode the global system designed to prevent unbridled power from preying on weaker states. Venezuela is more than a distant flashpoint. It is a test case for modern geopolitics, a demonstration of how misinformation, military power, and intelligence agencies can be wielded to reshape sovereign nations according to strategic interests. The stakes are clear. The world faces a choice. Act diplomatically to curb escalation, enforce accountability, and protect civilians, or watch as yet another nation is destabilized, its resources commandeered, its government undermined, and ordinary citizens trapped in a deadly experiment of power politics. The consequences of inaction may reverberate far beyond Venezuela. threatening the fragile order that underpins international relations in the 21st century. In the end, the Venezuelan crisis is a warning, a stark signal of what can happen when the instruments of intelligence, military force, and political influence are combined without oversight, restraint, or accountability. Every extrajudicial strike and every proxy-backed maneuver not only endangers lives today, but threatens to redefine the rules of global engagement tomorrow. If you found this investigation illuminating, hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell.